As you know, Apple became the first U.S. publicly traded company to hit $1 trillion market cap. They were just talking about that. Huge milestone. But at this valuation, how much influence of the stock market does Apple have right now? Dominic Chu spent the weekend pondering that very topic. Dom?
Well, Apple is arguably the most important stock in the U.S. market publicly traded universe because it has such a huge weighting for the market cap weighted indices like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ Composite, NASDAQ 100. It does carry the most weight. So let's put it in perspective. First of all, given today's weightings, we're just about 4.2% weighted for Apple in the S&P 500. Microsoft in second place at 3.5%. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, 3.1%. Amazon thereabouts in that same range. And then Facebook a little far behind here, but still almost a 2% weighting in terms of Apple being the biggest one in the S&P 500. Now, let's put it in even more perspective. If you take a look at over time, the most heavily weighted stocks in the S&P 500. Howard Silverblatt over at S&P Dow Jones Indices looked all the way back to 1980 at the year-end weightings for some of the biggest companies out there. Turns out it was IBM, Big Blue, that has the biggest weighting in the S&P 500 on a relative basis. That happened back in 1985, where it was nearly 6.5% of the overall S&P 500. Remember, 4.2% for Apple today. AT&T at one point in 1981 at the end of the year, 5.5%. ExxonMobil back in 2008 was a 5% weighting. And then Microsoft back near the height of .com, nearly a 5% weighting in the S&P 500 as well. And just to kind of further put it in perspective, folks, the current market cap of the S&P 500 at just about the end of last month was around $25.8 trillion. If Apple were to become, hypothetically, a 6.4 weighted percent in the S&P 500, it would make Apple worth, hypothetically, between $1.6 and $1.7 trillion. So a lot of folks out there are saying maybe there's more room to run for some of these companies out there.